Okay, buckle up, because this week's AI news is off the charts. We're talking multimodal AI, the kind of stuff that seems straight out of sci-fi. You know, like Google's NotebookLM. Imagine AI generating dynamic podcast dialogue. It's wild.
It really is amazing how fast things are moving.
Seriously, every week there's something new and potentially revolutionary. Speaking of revolutionary, we've got to talk about these new AI tools. Like, this one transcription tool is being called insanely fast, but honestly, they always say that. Is this one really different?
It's actually pretty remarkable. We're talking 2.5 hours of audio transcribed in under 2 minutes.
Wait, really? 98 seconds for that much audio? Okay, so for those of us who don't spend all day thinking about AI research, why is that such a big deal?
Well, think about it. It's a game changer for anyone working with audio. Researchers, journalists, even podcasters like yourself. The time saved is huge.
Right, like suddenly everything could be transcribed or have subtitles. Now, on a completely different note, this LipDub.ai thing really caught my eye. It uses AI to sync lips to new audio, and the demos look crazy realistic. Have you had a chance to play around with it yet?
It's still in beta, but yeah, the potential is huge. Imagine dubbing a film in any language but keeping the original actor's performance.
Whoa, yeah, that would completely change how we experience global media.
Exactly. And it's not just about translation. Imagine fixing a flubbed line in post-production without a reshoot. The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
Which makes California's recent legislation on AI actors even more interesting, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. For those who missed it, California just passed a law banning the use of AI to replicate an actor's voice or likeness without their consent.
So this isn't just some hypothetical concern anymore, huh?
Not even close. And it raises some fascinating questions about how we define things like authorship and performance in this age of AI.
Right, like is it ethical to use someone's likeness without permission, even if it's AI generated?
Exactly. These are complex issues, and honestly, we're only just starting to figure them out.
It feels like we could do a whole deep dive on just that topic. But while we're on the subject of big players in the AI space, Alibaba just dove in headfirst. They're releasing their own open source AI models, including one for text to video, which seems like a direct challenge to OpenAI and Google. What do you think?
This is a big deal. Alibaba's positioning themselves as a major player in AI, and their decision to release open-source models could have a ripple effect across the entire industry.
So they're not just dipping their toes in the water here, they're going all in.
It tells me they see AI as a key area for future growth, and they're not afraid to compete with the biggest names in the game.
It's like watching a tech showdown in real time. And speaking of unexpected AI applications, did you see this partnership between Always AI and Becker Mining? I never would have thought about using AI in the mining industry, but it sounds like it could be huge for safety.
It's a great example of how AI is being applied in really innovative ways. And it's not just mining. The newsletter also mentioned EfficientNet being used in medical imaging, which is incredible.
So we've got AI in mining and medicine. What's next? AI chefs.
Well, there are already AI tools for generating recipes, but I think the real question is how these advancements will continue to change our understanding of what it means to be creative.
Right. Like, what does it mean to be a creator when AI can help with or even automate so much of the creative process?
Exactly.
That's a question I definitely want to circle back to. But I also want to hear more about the potential downsides of all of this. We've talked about deepfakes and data privacy, but what about other concerns?
Honestly, it's the unknown that worries me the most. AI is such a young field, and we're constantly finding new capabilities and potential uses. It's like opening a Pandora's box. We don't know what we'll find.
It really does feel like that sometimes, doesn't it? Like we're opening this incredible, powerful box and just hoping for the best.
Right. Like, what's going to fly out of here?
Yeah, exactly. But speaking of unknowns, the newsletter also mentioned voice-based deepfakes, which feels like a whole other level of worry.
It's true. We've all seen how convincing deepfake videos can be, and voice cloning tech is getting scarily good. We're talking about the ability to create audio that sounds exactly like someone, saying anything you want.
And that's not just about making celebrity spoof videos anymore, is it?
Not even close. Think about the potential for scams, for misinformation.
Oh, wow. Like getting a voicemail that sounds exactly like your bank asking for your info.
Right. Or a political campaign using deepfakes to spread lies about their opponent.
Okay, so we definitely need to talk about regulations and safeguards. But on a slightly more hopeful note, let's talk about OpenAI's new O1 models. There's supposed to be this big leap forward for AI in terms of strategic human thought processes, whatever that means. Can you translate that from AI speak to regular human for me?
Basically, these new models are designed to be better at reasoning and problem solving.
So less about generating creative text formats.
Right, although they can still do that. But now it's more about actually thinking like humans do,
Mhm.
considering different options, anticipating consequences, that kind of thing.
So actually making strategic decisions instead of just following instructions, that's kind of a big deal, right?
It is. A lot of earlier AI models were good at certain tasks, but really struggled with anything that required that higher level strategic thinking.
Like, they could write you a poem, but planning a multi-step project was beyond them.
Exactly. These new models are designed to tackle those more complex challenges.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've covered AI replicating voices and even thought processes. What about the visual side of things? Any breakthroughs there?
Definitely. This is another area where things are moving incredibly fast.
Hmm.
Adobe, for example, recently came out with a new text-to-video model.
Oh, right, and they're really careful about using licensed content, which makes sense, given all the, copyright concerns swirling around AI-generated stuff these days.
It's smart. Adobe's essentially trying to get ahead of the curve by training their model on legally obtained content.
Which, as someone who lives in fear of accidental copyright strikes, is very, very reassuring. But it does raise a bigger issue: data privacy. This whole thing with Meta using public data for AI training in the UK is a perfect example. Where do we draw the line?
That's the million-dollar question. You have the potential benefits of training these powerful AI models, but also valid concerns about privacy and consent.
Right. At what point does using public data become a problem? It's tough,
It's a complex issue, and I don't think anyone has all the answers yet.
especially with these companies figuring it out as they go.
Which is why it's so important to have these conversations, right? To keep raising awareness about the potential implications of all of this.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just talk about the cool tech. We've got to talk about how we use it responsibly.
Exactly. It's not just about the technology itself, but the ethical framework we build around it.
It's like, oh, we need a whole new set of guidelines for the AI age, right?
I think we do.
Yeah.
And honestly, those conversations need to be happening right now.
Now, we talked about Adobe trying to address the copyright issue. Are there other companies taking a similar approach, being proactive about the ethical side of AI?
Absolutely. Some are implementing stricter data privacy policies. Others are focused on making their AI models more transparent.
So people can actually understand how the AI is making decisions.
Right, because that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And some are even putting together internal ethics boards to oversee their AI development process.
Okay, that's good to hear. It seems like there's a growing awareness that we can't just unleash this technology without thinking about the consequences.
Definitely. And that awareness is coming from all directions,
Hmm.
within tech companies, from policymakers, even from the general public.
So it really feels like we're at this pivotal moment. AI is evolving so rapidly, and we have a responsibility to make sure that it's used for good.
Couldn't agree more. And it's not just about preventing bad things from happening. It's about actively shaping the future of AI so that it benefits everyone.
So that means asking the tough questions, holding these companies accountable.
Exactly. Transparency is key.
It's so easy to get caught up in the wow factor of this technology, but like you said, it's about so much more than just cool gadgets and what could be.
It really is about the future we're creating and the role AI will play in it.
Exactly. And this deep dive, even though it's just a starting point, it's highlighting all of that.
Absolutely. It's exciting, it's overwhelming, but we need to be having these conversations.
100%. We're on the edge of something huge, and I, for one, am equal parts excited and terrified. Okay, so we've covered a ton in this deep dive. Insanely fast transcription, AI actors, data privacy, the whole works.
It's a lot to process, for sure, and we're just scratching the surface.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you really think about it. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier. This idea of AI changing what it even means to be a creator.
Yeah, it's a question that's becoming impossible to ignore, especially as these AI tools get more and more sophisticated.
We're already seeing AI being used in music, in art, even writing novels, right?
Absolutely. And with these new text-to-video tools, the voice cloning, it really feels like almost any creative field could be impacted.
Which raises the question, if an AI can create something indistinguishable from what a human can create, is it still art?
Right. That's the big debate, isn't it?
And I don't think there's an easy answer.
Not at all. Some people think AI will always just be a tool, a way for human artists to kind of boost their own creativity.
Right.
But then there are those who think AI could actually become the artist, the creator in its own right.
Which is when things start to get really interesting and maybe a little bit existential for us humans. But instead of going too far down that road, maybe we can bring it back to something a little more concrete. We've talked a lot about the exciting potential of AI, but what about the risks? The things that keep you up at night?
Honestly, it's the unknown, the what ifs. AI is still such a young field. We're constantly uncovering new possibilities, but also potential dangers.
Right, like we said earlier. It's like an opening Pandora's box.
Exactly. And we just have to hope we can handle whatever comes flying out. But seriously, we need to be having these conversations, thinking about the ethical side, the unintended consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not enough to just get caught up in the wow factor.
100%.
Yeah.
We have a responsibility to make sure AI is used for good.
That it enhances our lives, not takes over or something.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, I think we've given our listeners a lot to chew on.
Definitely food for thought.
This deep dive has been fascinating, overwhelming at times, but in a good way.
The best kind of overwhelming.
So to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of AI. We love to keep the conversation going. What are your thoughts on all of this? Are you excited about AI's potential? Worried about the risks? Let us know. You can find us on social media or leave a comment on our website. Until next time, stay curious.